I was still in a hospital bed when my son told the world I was a toxic parent. Not to my face, not in a phone call, not even in a text. He posted it online. I remember the exact moment. The room was quiet except for the monitor next to me. Slow beeps. Steady. I had just come out of a cardiac procedure. Nothing dramatic but serious enough that they kept me overnight. I was still wearing the thin hospital bracelet. My hair was a mess. My throat was dry. I reached for my phone just to distract myself. And there it was. Jason had posted something. Some parents don't love you. They control you. They guilt trip you. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. It had a few likes already. A couple comments. One of them was from his wife. Finally. I stared at that word longer than I cared to admit. Finally. Like I had been something he needed to escape from. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would. But I didn't feel sad the way you'd expect. It was quieter than that, like something inside me just settled. I put the phone down. Then I picked it back up again, read it one more time. Same words, same tone, same feeling. And I thought, okay, that's where we are now. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 62 years old. I live in Columbia, Maryland in a house I paid off 5 years ago. I worked as a registered nurse for most of my life. Long shifts, weekends, holidays. I've seen people at their worst and at their most honest. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that people show you who they are when things get hard. I guess I just didn't expect that lesson to come from my own son. Jason is my only child. When his father passed, it was just the two of us. He was in his early 20s then, still figuring things out. I made a decision back then that I never really questioned until recently. I decided I would make sure he never struggled the way I did. At the time, it felt like love. It felt like responsibility. It felt like what any mother would do. I picked up extra shifts when he needed help with rent. I covered his car payment 1 year when things got tight. When he told me he was getting into mortgage lending, I was proud of him. It sounded stable, professional, like he was finally stepping into something solid. And when he said he wanted to buy a house, I didn't hesitate. He told me it was a good investment, that the market was right, that he just needed a little help with the down payment to make it work. A little help turned out to be $80,000. I wired it the same week. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, logging into my bank account, double-checking the number, hitting send, thinking this is what you do for your child. You give them a foundation. He thanked me. He really did. Took me out to dinner that weekend, told me he couldn't have done it without me. That was 3 years ago. Somewhere along the way, things shifted. Not all at once, nothing dramatic, just small changes that didn't seem important at the time. He started calling less, not in a bad way, just busy, work, life, his wife, the baby. Maya, my granddaughter, she's 7 now, smart, funny, loves drawing and asking questions no one is ready for. For a while, I was picking her up from school almost every day, feeding her dinner, helping with homework, waiting until Jason or Amber got home. I didn't mind. I actually liked it. It made the house feel full again. And then the money part, it never really stopped. At first, it was temporary, just until things stabilize. That phrase came up a lot. 1,000 here, a couple thousand there, then it became regular. 1,500 a month. I told myself it was fine. I had the savings, my house was paid off, my expenses were low, and Jason always made it sound like it was just a short-term bridge. You're helping us get ahead, Mom. You're part of this. That word stuck with me. Part of this. I believed that meant I was part of their life, not just their finances. There were moments, though, when something didn't feel right. Little things. I'd call just to check in and he'd sound distracted. Like he was doing me a favor by picking up. Conversations got shorter, less personal. But when something came up, a bill, a repair, an unexpected expense, he always had time to explain exactly what he needed. Clear, focused, detailed. I noticed that. I just didn't say anything. You tell yourself stories when you don't want to see what's in front of you. You say he's stressed, he's working hard, he has a family now. This is what adulthood looks like. And maybe part of that was true. But lying in that hospital bed, looking at that post, I realized something I hadn't let myself say out loud before. He didn't think he needed me. He thought he had already used me. I picked up my phone again, not to respond, not to defend myself, just to look at the screen. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything. Not the situation, not his opinion, not the distance between us. I just sat there listening to the monitor, watching the numbers move and thinking about everything I had been quietly holding together for years. And how quickly it all looked different now. I kept staring at that screen longer than I should have, then locked my phone and set it face down on the tray beside me. The room didn't change. Same steady beeping, same dull light, but something inside me had shifted and I couldn't push it back where it used to be. I leaned my head against the pillow and closed my eyes, not to sleep, just to think. And once I started thinking, I couldn't stop. Jason wasn't always like this. That's the part people don't see when things fall apart. They think it must have always been broken. It wasn't. He used to call me every morning, not because he needed anything, just to talk. On his way to work, he'd tell me about traffic, about a client, about something small that happened the day before. I didn't even have to say much. He just liked knowing I was there. After his father passed, those calls mattered more than I ever told him. Grief does something strange. It doesn't just take a person. It rearranges everything around you. The house gets quieter, the days feel longer, and the people you have left, you hold on to them tighter than you probably should. Jason became that person for me. I made sure he had what he needed. Not just the basics, stability, options, a little breathing room so he didn't feel trapped the way I had at his age. When he got his first apartment, I helped with the deposit. When his car broke down, I covered the repair. Nothing extreme, just enough to keep things moving. He always said thank you back then. That's important, because I don't want to rewrite the past just to make the present make sense. He appreciated it. He did. When he met Amber, I was relieved. She seemed put together, confident, the kind of woman who knew what she wanted. They moved fast, but it felt like they were building something real. Then came the job issues. Mortgage lending sounded stable on paper, but it wasn't always consistent. Some months were good, some weren't. Commission work has a way of doing that. The first time he called asking for help, his voice sounded different. Not entitled, not casual, nervous. Mom, I just need a little help this month. Things are slow right now. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. I transferred the money that same afternoon. That's how it started. Not as a pattern. Just one moment, one decision that felt easy. Then it happened again, a few months later, another slow period, another shortfall. Still reasonable, still temporary. That word came up a lot, temporary. When he told me about the house, I remember exactly where I was sitting. Same kitchen table, same laptop, same login screen I had used 100 times before. This is a good move, Mom. I just need help getting in. He explained the numbers, the rates, the timing. It all sounded solid. He knew the industry. That gave me confidence. $80,000 is not a small amount. I knew that, but I also knew what it could do for him. Stability, equity, a place to raise his daughter. So I wired it. No contract, no repayment plan, just trust. That weekend he hugged me a little tighter than usual. Amber thanked me too. Dinner was nice, relaxed. For a moment it felt like everything I had done was exactly what it was supposed to be. But the thing about big decisions like that, they don't change everything all at once. They change expectations. After they moved in, things looked good from the outside. The house was nice, clean, well decorated. Amber posted pictures online, holidays, birthdays, little family moments. It all looked put together, and I was part of it. At least I thought I was. Then came Maya. From the moment she was born, I was there. Hospital visits, late nights, early mornings, whatever they needed. When Amber went back to work, I stepped in without hesitation. 5 days a week, I picked Maya up from school, brought her home, made dinner, helped with homework. Sometimes I stayed until bedtime if they were running late. Again, I didn't mind. That's the part I want to be clear about. I wasn't forced into any of it. I chose it every time. Because I believed I was helping my family stay strong. Somewhere along the way, though, the tone changed. The requests got smoother, less like requests, more like updates. We're a little tight this month. Can you cover this one thing? It'll balance out soon. And it always sounded reasonable. Always had a timeline. Always came with just enough detail to make it feel temporary. So I kept saying yes. Month after month, I logged in, checked the account, sent the transfer. It became routine, almost automatic. I told myself it made sense. That this was what support looked like, that families helped each other like this. But there was one moment, small, easy to miss, that stayed with me. Jason was talking to someone at a barbecue, a friend, I think. I wasn't part of the conversation, just close enough to hear pieces of it. He was explaining how they managed to get the house, how they handled expenses, how they were making it work. He didn't mention me once, not even in passing. I stood there for a second holding a paper plate I didn't even remember filling and realized something I didn't have words for yet. It wasn't just that I was helping. It was that my help had become invisible and somehow expected at the same time. I didn't say anything then either. I just smiled when he looked over, nodded like everything was normal. Then later that night, I went home, sat at that same kitchen table, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account again. I hovered over the transfer button for a second longer than usual, then clicked it anyway. The confirmation screen popped up. Same message, same numbers, same quiet sense. that I was doing the right thing. That's how it kept going, not with one big decision, with 100 small ones that all felt reasonable at the time. The $1,500 a month started as a cushion, just to help Jason stabilize. That was the word he liked. It sounded responsible, temporary, controlled. But months turned into a year, then another, and the money never stopped. It became part of my routine. First week of the month, I'd log and check my balance and send it over. No reminders, no request needed anymore. I just did it. Sometimes he'd text after, "Got it, thanks, Mom." Sometimes nothing at all. That bothered me more than I expected. Not the money, the silence. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. People get busy, life moves fast. Gratitude doesn't always come out the way you think it should. But I started noticing patterns. Jason didn't call to check in anymore. Not really. Conversations had a purpose now, a direction. They led somewhere. If he called, it was because something needed to be solved. And he was good at explaining things. That's something I'll give him. Clear, calm, logical. "Mom, the market's shifting right now. I just need to ride this out. Mom, this is short-term pressure. Long-term, we're fine. Mom, you're helping us build something stable for Maya." That last part always worked on me. Maya. If there was one thing that kept me from questioning anything too deeply, it was her. I saw her almost every day back then. She'd run to the door when I picked her up from school, backpack half open, talking before she even got her shoes off. "Grandma, guess what happened today?" And it didn't matter what the story was. I listened every time. We'd sit at the kitchen table, do homework, then I'd make dinner. Simple meals, things she liked, nothing fancy. Those were good hours. Quiet, real, no pressure, no expectations, just being there. And that's where things got complicated, because the part of my life that felt the most genuine was also the part that made everything else easier to ignore. Jason and Amber started relying on that more too. At first, it was occasional. "Can you pick her up today?" Then it became assumed. "She gets out at 3:15. No question, just information." Again, I didn't say anything. I adjusted my schedule, moved things around, made it work. That's what you do, right? You show up. But over time, it stopped feeling like I was helping them. It felt like I was holding the whole structure up, and they had gotten used to not noticing. There were little moments that stuck with me. Amber posting pictures online, smiling, brunch with friends, weekend trips, new furniture, updated kitchen decor. It all looked nice, polished, like everything was handled. I never saw a post that said, "My mother-in-law made this possible." I didn't need that, not really. But it told me something. The version of their life they showed the world didn't include me, even though I was part of almost every piece of it. Then there were the conversations, or the lack of them. I'd call sometimes in the evening, just to talk, just to hear his voice. He'd pick up, but I could hear it immediately. Distraction. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" Background noise, a TV, Maya talking, Amber moving around. I'd ask how his day was. "Busy, you know how it is." Then a pause, like he was waiting for me to get to the point. I'd fill the silence. "Just wanted to check in. Everything good?" Yeah, we're good." And then it would end. 2 minutes, maybe 3. But if something came up, an unexpected bill, a slow month, a client falling through, he had time. Plenty of time. He'd break it down step by step. Explain the numbers, the timing, why it mattered right now. And somehow every situation felt urgent enough to act on. I remember one conversation clearly. He was talking about some issue with escrow, something delayed, money tied up. I didn't understand all of it, but I didn't need to. He ended with, "It'll clear up next month." Next month came and went. The pattern stayed. At some point, I stopped asking when it would end, because I think I already knew. It wasn't ending. It had become part of their system, and I was the part that didn't get questioned. There was something else too, subtle, but it stayed with me. Jason started framing things differently. "You like helping, Mom." He said it casually one afternoon while we were sitting in his living room. Maya was in the other room watching TV. "It gives you something to do." He smiled when he said it, like it was a compliment, like he was giving me a reason. I nodded, didn't argue. But that sentence sat with me longer than anything else, because it flipped something. It turned what I thought was love into something else. Something useful, something expected. And once that shift happens, it's hard to unsee it. I didn't confront him. Not then. I didn't pull back, didn't change anything. I just kept going, logging in, sending money, picking up Maya, making dinner, filling the gaps. Because the truth is I wasn't ready to see it clearly yet. It's easier to keep a system running than to ask what happens when you stop. I set my phone down after that transfer and just sat there for a minute longer than I usually did. The screen went dark. My reflection stared back at me, tired but steady. That should have been a moment, a pause, something to question. But I closed the laptop and moved on with my day. That's how most of it happened. Not with big decisions, with small moments I chose not to look at too closely. Like the time I got sick last winter. Nothing serious, just a bad cold that wouldn't go away. I felt weak, lightheaded, the kind of tired that sits in your bones. I called Jason that morning, not for money, not for anything complicated. I just asked if he could bring Maya over to my place instead of me picking her up. Just for a few days, until I felt better. There was a pause on the other end. Not a long one, but long enough. Mom, that's kind of hard with our schedule. That was it. No follow-up. No, are you okay? No, do you need anything? Just logistics. I said it was fine, told him I'd figure it out. And I did. I got in my car that afternoon, drove to the school, picked Maya up, smiled like I always did. But something stayed with me. Not anger, not even disappointment. Just a quiet realization that I had made myself available in ways that weren't being returned. Still, I didn't change anything. I kept showing up. There was another moment not long after that. We were all at their house. A small gathering, nothing formal, a few of Jason's friends, some neighbors. I was in the kitchen cleaning up a little when I heard him talking in the living room. Someone had asked him how things were going. He said, "We've been managing pretty well, just staying on top of everything." I waited for the rest. It didn't come. No mention of help, no mention of support. Just we. I stood there with a dish in my hand, listening to him explain his life as if it existed entirely on its own. And again, I didn't say anything. I walked back into the room, smiled, joined the conversation like everything was exactly as it should be. Because that's what I had trained myself to do. Keep things smooth, keep things easy. Don't make it uncomfortable. Amber was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I came in and smiled. "Dinner was great, Evelyn. Not thank you for everything. Just dinner. Again, small thing. But small things add up." I started noticing how often my role was reduced to whatever I had just done in that moment. Food, pickup, money. Not presence, not connection, function. And once you see that, it's hard to stop seeing it everywhere. The calls changed too. I remember dialing his number one evening just to hear how his day went. He answered, but I could hear it in his voice immediately. "Hey, Mom." Flat, distracted. I asked how work was. "Busy." Pause. "How's Maya?" "She's good." Another pause. It felt like we were both waiting for something. Or maybe just me. I filled the silence again. "Just wanted to check in." "Yeah, everything's fine." Then the call ended. 3 minutes. But later that same week, he called me. Different tone, more energy. "Hey, Mom, quick question." He explained something about a delay, funds tied up, a payment coming due. He walked me through it step by step. Clear, focused, confident. By the end of the call, I understood exactly what he needed. And I sent it. That contrast started standing out more and more. When he didn't need anything, I felt like I was interrupting. When he did, I had his full attention. I wish I could say that's when I stepped back, that I recognized it and made a change. I didn't, because there was always a reason not to. Stress, work, family responsibilities. I told myself this was just a phase, that once things stabilized, everything would go back to how it used to be. But there was one moment that stayed with me longer than the others. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just finished helping Maya with a school project. We were sitting at the table, glue sticks and paper spread out everywhere. Jason walked in, glanced at what we were doing, then looked at me. "You're really good with her," he said. I smiled. "I try." He nodded. Then he added almost as an afterthought, "It's nice that you have something to keep you busy." Busy. That word landed differently. Not helpful, not important. Busy. Like I was filling time. Like everything I was doing had been reduced to a way to occupy myself. I didn't respond right away. Just nodded. Kept helping Maya with her project. But that sentence stayed with me. Because it shifted something. It took everything I had been giving, time, energy, money, and reframed it into something smaller. Something optional. And I realized maybe not all at once, but clearly enough, I had been adjusting my life around theirs. Completely. And they had adjusted theirs. As if I would always be there. No questions asked. No changes needed. Just a constant. I cleaned up the table that afternoon, packed Maya's things, and got ready to leave. Jason thanked me on the way out. "Quick, automatic." "Appreciate it, Mom." I nodded, grabbed my bag, and stepped outside. The air was cold, quiet. I stood there for a second before getting into my car. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel needed. I felt expected. There's a difference. And once you feel it, even just for a moment, it doesn't go away. I adjusted the blanket over my legs and looked up at the ceiling again, trying to focus on something steady. The procedure itself hadn't been dramatic. Cardiac catheterization. That's what they called it. Routine, they said, in and out, just a precaution after a few irregular readings during a checkup. I had signed the forms myself, listened to the doctor explain the risks, nodded like I understood everything because I did. I've spent most of my life in hospitals. I know how this works. But it's different when you're the one in the bed. The gown, the IV, the waiting. You notice things you don't usually think about. The way nurses speak softer at night. The way time stretches when you don't have anything to do but think. Lorraine had dropped me off that morning. 70 years old bad knee still insisted on driving me. Sat with me until they wheeled me in. Made sure I had my glasses, my phone, my charger. Call me if you need anything, she said. Not family, not obligated, just there. Jason knew the date. I told him 3 weeks in advance. The hospital name, the time, the procedure, all of it. The night before he texted, "Good luck tomorrow. Keep me posted." That was it. No call, no offer to come by, no "do you want me there?" I told myself it was fine. He had work, a schedule, a family. I didn't need him to sit in a waiting room for hours. That's what I told myself. The procedure went smoothly. I woke up groggy, a little sore, but fine. They kept me overnight just to monitor things. Standard. I remember reaching for my phone sometime in the afternoon. No missed calls. One message from Jason. "Hey, did you get that insurance thing sorted? The payment's coming up." I read it twice. Not "how are you feeling?" Not everything go okay. Just a reminder. About money. I didn't respond right away. I set the phone down and looked around the room. Machines, white walls, a chair no one was sitting in. I thought about Lorraine, about how she had waited with me that morning, how she had asked questions, how she had looked concerned. Then I thought about my son, and for the first time, the comparison felt clear. Not emotional, not dramatic, just accurate. The nurse came in later to check my vitals, asked how I was feeling. "I'm okay," I said. And physically, I was. But something else had shifted. That night was quiet. Hospitals have a rhythm after midnight, slower, dimmer. You hear footsteps in the hallway, the occasional voice, the sound of a cart rolling by. I couldn't sleep, not because of pain, because once your mind starts connecting things, it doesn't stop. Every small moment from the past few years lined up differently. The calls, the money, the silence when I needed something, and the consistency when he did. I wasn't confused anymore. That's what surprised me the most. I wasn't trying to figure anything out. I already knew. The next morning, they cleared me for discharge. Paperwork, instructions. A nurse going over medications I didn't even need long term. Take it easy for a few days. I nodded, listened, signed where I needed to sign. Lorraine came back to pick me up. Same calm presence, same concern. "You good?" she asked as I got into the car. "I'm fine," I said, and this time I meant something different by it. When I got home, the house felt exactly the same as it always did. Quiet, clean, still. I put my bag down, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. Then I sat at the table. Same spot, same chair. The place where I had made every decision for the past few years without thinking twice. I picked up my phone again. Jason hadn't called. There was another message from him. Also, the mortgage is hitting earlier this month, just FYI. I stared at that one a little longer. Not because I didn't understand it, because I understood it perfectly. I set the phone down, picked it back up, opened the app, not my messages, Facebook. I don't use it much, mostly just to see pictures of Maya or keep up with a few people from work. But something told me to look. Jason had posted again, or maybe I had just missed it the day before. Either way, it was there now. Same tone, same voice. Sometimes the hardest thing is realizing that not all family is healthy for you. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. More likes this time, more comments, people agreeing, supporting, telling him he was doing the right thing. I read through a few of them. Then I saw Amber's comment again. Finally. That word didn't surprise me this time. It confirmed something. This wasn't stress. It wasn't a bad day. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was how they saw it. How they saw me. I sat there, phone in my hand, and felt something settle into place. Not anger. Not even hurt. Just clarity. Clear enough that I didn't feel the need to respond. Clear enough that I didn't feel the need to explain. Clear enough that for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel responsible for fixing it. I unlocked my phone again, not to read anything this time, just to make a call. My hand didn't shake. That's something I noticed. I expected it to. This felt like a big decision. The kind people second guess halfway through. But I didn't hesitate. I tapped on a name I hadn't used in a while. Daniel Brooks. He's been my attorney for years. Not someone I talk to often. Just someone you keep in your life when you understand how things work. Wills, documents. The parts of life most people don't think about until they have to. He picked up on the second ring. Evelyn. His tone didn't change, calm, professional, like it always was. "Hi, Daniel. I need to make some changes." No long explanation. No emotional buildup. Just that. There was a brief pause on his end. Not confusion. More like he was shifting gears. All right, he said. What kind of changes? I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window for a second before answering. Everything that involves my son. That got his attention. Okay, he said slowly. Let's walk through it. We spent the next hour going over things I had set up years ago and never thought much about again. My accounts, my will, access permissions I had given Jason just in case. At the time, it felt responsible, like I was planning ahead. Now it felt careless. Daniel asked direct questions. That's what I like about him. No guessing, no assumptions. Does he currently have access to any of your accounts? Yes. Primary or secondary? Secondary. But enough to see everything. And you want that removed? Yes. No hesitation. All right, we can take care of that. He moved on. Any ongoing financial support? I paused for a second. Yes. Formal or informal? Informal. How long? About 3 years. He didn't react, just noted it. And you want to end that? Yes. Again, no hesitation. Then came the part that mattered most. My granddaughter, I said. Maya. His tone shifted slightly. Softer. Yes, I said. I want to make sure she's taken care of. But not through them. He understood immediately. We can set up an irrevocable trust, he said. Third-party managed. Funds accessible at a certain age. No parental control. That's exactly what I want. We talked through the details. Age limit. Use restrictions. Who would manage it? Every piece of it felt structured, clear, thought out. Very different from how I had been handling things before. Before everything was based on trust. Now it was based on terms. We went back to the house contribution. The 80,000. Was that documented, he asked? No. Gift or loan? I treated it like a gift. And now, I thought about that question for a moment. Now I want it recognized, I said, not to fight over it, just acknowledge. He nodded even though I couldn't see him. We can formalize it as a recorded contribution tied to the property. It won't disrupt anything immediately, but it establishes position. That was enough. I didn't need a fight. I needed clarity. We finished with the accounts. He gave me a list of steps. Contact the bank, remove access, update passwords, reassign beneficiaries. Simple actions, nothing dramatic. But each one carried weight. Before we ended the call, he asked one more question. Do you plan to inform him before or after these changes? I looked down at my hands. After. Understood. There was a pause. Not awkward, just quiet. Then he said, Evelyn, this is the right way to handle it. I didn't ask what he meant by that. I already knew. We ended the call. I sat there for a minute, phone still in my hand. Then I stood up and walked over to my desk. Opened my laptop. Same login screen, same routine. But this time it felt different. I went through each account one by one, removed his access, changed the passwords, updated the recovery information. Every step was simple. Click, confirm, done. No alarms, no warnings, just quiet changes. That's the thing people don't talk about. Big shifts don't always come with big moments. Sometimes they happen in silence. I moved on to the next account, then the next. By the time I finished, everything looked exactly the same on the surface. Same balances, same layout, same numbers. But the structure behind it had changed completely. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. The house was quiet. No phone calls, no messages, just stillness. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for something. Not a request, not a problem to solve, not a situation to fix. I picked up my phone again, opened my messages, scrolled to Jason's name. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. Then I typed, short, direct. I saw your post. I've made some changes to my finances. I think some space would be good right now. I read it once. No extra words, no explanation, nothing to argue with. Then I hit send. I placed the phone face down on the table, walked into the kitchen, filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and waited for the water to boil, listening to the quiet in a way I hadn't allowed myself to in years. The kettle clicked off, and I poured the water slowly, watching the steam rise like it always did. Nothing felt dramatic. No rush, no panic, just quiet. I carried the cup to the living room, sat down, and didn't touch my phone. Not right away. For years, I had trained myself to respond quickly, to fix things before they became problems, to answer calls, texts, questions. That day, I didn't. The first vibration came about 20 minutes later. I glanced at the screen. Jason. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again. I watched it the second time, same name, same urgency. I didn't pick up. The third time, it rang longer, then stopped. A few seconds later, a message came through. Mom, what's going on? I read it, didn't answer. Another one. Did something happen? Then another. Why did you remove me from the account? So he noticed. Of course he did. That part didn't take long. I set the phone down and took a sip of my tea, still too hot. A minute passed, then another. The phone lit up again. This time a call followed by a voicemail. I didn't play it immediately. I let it sit there. For once, I wasn't reacting to the situation. I was letting it unfold. More messages came in. Mom, I don't understand. This is really serious. We have bills coming up. There it was. Not are you okay? Not how are you feeling after the hospital? Just bills. I picked up the phone and finally listened to the voicemail. His voice was controlled, calm but tight. Hey, I saw the account changes. I think there's been some kind of mistake. We need to talk. Call me back when you get this. Need. Not want. Need. I set the phone down again. The pattern was the same. Different situation, same tone. A few minutes later, Amber called. I let that one ring too. Then came her message. Evelyn, I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Can you please call us? We're trying to figure out what's going on. Polite, careful, but still centered on one thing. What's going on with the money? The calls didn't stop. By the afternoon, I had 6 missed calls from Jason, 3 from Amber, a few voicemails I hadn't listened to yet. I went about my day anyway. I washed the dishes, straightened up the kitchen, took out the trash. Normal things I had done 1,000 times before. But without that constant background pressure, no expectation hanging over me, no sense that something was about to come up that I'd have to handle. It felt different, lighter. Around 5 o'clock, I checked my phone again. More messages. This time the tone had shifted. Mom, you're overreacting. That one made me pause. Not because it upset me, because it didn't. A few months ago, that would have triggered something. A need to explain, to defend myself, to smooth things over. Now it just felt predictable. Another message followed. That post wasn't even about you. Then, you're taking this the wrong way. I leaned back in my chair and let out a small breath. There it was. Step 1. Denial. Minimize. Reframe. Redirect. I didn't respond. An hour later, another message. We're under a lot of pressure right now. The mortgage is due earlier this month. Step 2. Justification. Make it about circumstances. Make it about timing. Make it about stress. Still nothing about me. Nothing about the hospital. Nothing about how I was feeling. Just pressure and money. The phone rang again. This time I answered. Not because I felt like I had to, because I wanted to hear it directly. Mom, Jason said, his voice sharper now, less controlled. What is going on? I didn't rush my answer. I made some changes. What kind of changes, he asked, even though he already knew. I removed your access to my accounts. A pause. Why? The question came out quick, almost defensive. I could hear movement in the background, Amber's voice low asking something. Because I needed to, I said. That doesn't make sense, he said. We've always handled things this way. I noticed that. That's the problem, I said. Silence. Not long, just enough. Then he shifted again. Okay, but you can't just do that without talking to me first. We have things set up. Payments, responsibilities. Again. I've been talking to you for years, I said. You just didn't hear it. That landed. I could tell. His tone changed. Mom, this is not fair. Fair. Another interesting word. What's not fair? I asked. This, he said. Cutting things off like this. We rely on you. There it was. Clear, direct. No confusion anymore. Not we need you. Not we care about you. We rely on you. I didn't respond right away. I let that sentence sit there between us because it said everything I needed it to say. I'm not changing anything back, I said finally. Another pause. Longer this time. Then his voice dropped. So that's it. I didn't answer that question. Not because I didn't have one, because I didn't need to explain it. I ended the call and set my phone down without looking at it again. About 30 minutes later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't need to check the window to know who it was. The engine stayed running for a few seconds, then it shut off. Doors opened, closed, footsteps. Then the doorbell. One press. Not aggressive, not hesitant either. Just certain. I stood up slowly, not rushing, not stalling, just moving at my own pace for once. When I reached the door, I paused for a second, not to think, just to breathe. Then I opened it. Jason was standing there, hands at his sides, jaw tight. Amber stood slightly behind him, arms crossed, her expression careful. Mom, he said immediately. No hello, no small talk. Just that one word loaded with everything that hadn't been said on the phone. I stepped aside and let them in. They walked into the living room like they'd done 100 times before, but it felt different now. Less familiar, like the space had shifted without changing at all. Jason didn't sit. He turned to face me. What is going on? He asked again. Same question. Different tone. Less confusion now. More urgency. I stayed standing. I told you I made some changes. That's not an explanation, he said. You cut off access, you stopped transfers, you didn't even talk to me first. Amber stepped in slightly. We were caught completely off guard, she said. We didn't know what was happening. I looked at her for a moment. You didn't, I asked. She hesitated. Well, no, not like this. Jason exhaled sharply. Mom, this is serious. We have obligations, the mortgage, the school, everything's lined up based on how things have been. Based on how things have been. I nodded once. I understand that. Then you know why this is a problem, he said quickly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to the chair and sat down. Not to avoid the conversation, to slow it down. If they wanted to talk, we were going to do it at my pace. Jason stayed standing for a second, then sat across from me. Amber remained near the edge of the room like she wasn't fully committing to either side. You said that post wasn't about me, I said. Jason rubbed his forehead. It wasn't. It was general. Just stuff I've been dealing with. General, I repeated. Yeah, he said. People relate to that kind of thing. It's not. Your wife commented finally, I said. That stopped him. He glanced back at Amber for a second. She shifted her weight. That was just a comment, she said. It didn't mean anything specific. I looked back at Jason. Then why did it feel specific? He didn't answer that. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Look, whatever this is, we can talk through it. But you can't just shut everything down like this. That's not how this works. I let that sit there for a moment. Then I asked, how does it work? He blinked. What? How does it work? I repeated. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I provide something and you build your life around it. That's not fair, he said immediately. There's that word again, I said calmly. Amber stepped in again. We're not saying you haven't helped, she said. Of course you have. We're grateful for that. Grateful. Present tense. I nodded slowly. But I asked. She hesitated. There's just a lot going on right now. Financially, timing-wise. There it was. We had circled back. Not to the hospital. Not to the post. Not to anything that had actually changed. Just money. Jason picked up where she left off. The mortgage payment is coming up earlier this month, he said. We're short. Not by a lot, but enough. That this change right now, it puts us in a bad spot. A bad spot. I looked at him carefully. And my hospital stay, I asked. He paused. What about it? What about it? I repeated. He shifted slightly. I mean, you said everything went fine. That's not the question, I said. Another pause. Amber looked down at her phone for a second, then back up. Jason exhaled. Mom, I didn't realize it was that serious. That was the answer. Not that he couldn't come. Not that he tried. He didn't realize. I nodded once. That makes sense. He looked at me confused by my tone. What does that mean? It means I said that we've been operating under two very different understandings of this relationship. He frowned. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I leaned back slightly. It means I thought I was part of your life, I said, and you thought I was part of your system. Silence. Not awkward. Just clear. Jason looked away first. Amber didn't say anything. I continued, still calm. I love you, I said. That hasn't changed. It's not going to change. Jason's shoulders relaxed slightly at that. But I didn't stop there. But I'm not going to keep funding a life where I only matter when something needs to be covered. His expression tightened again. That's not what this is, he said. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I've made arrangements for Maya, I said. She's taken care of. That got their attention. What does that mean? Amber asked quickly. It means she'll have what she needs, I said, in a way that doesn't depend on anyone else's decisions. Jason sat back, processing that. And us, he asked. I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man he had become, at the space between who I thought he was and who he had shown himself to be. That part, I said quietly, is up to you. I kept thinking about her sitting there at that kitchen table. Table, same laptop, same routine she had followed for years. Nothing around her had changed, but everything had. And that's what stayed with me after hearing this story. Not the money, not even the post. It was the moment she stopped trying to fix something that had been quietly breaking for a long time. Because if we're being honest, this story didn't start in that hospital room. It didn't start with that Facebook post. It started years earlier. In small decisions, in quiet yeses, in moments where love slowly turned into obligation without anyone saying it out loud. And that's where most people miss the lesson. They wait for the big moment, the obvious betrayal, the undeniable proof. But by the time you get there, the pattern has already been built. What makes this story different and why it hits so hard is that Evelyn didn't explode. She didn't argue. She didn't try to win. She just stepped out of a system that had been running without her consent for years. And that's not something we talk about enough. Because in a lot of family stories, especially in the US, there's this unspoken expectation. If you can help, you should. If you love someone, you show it by giving. Time, money, energy, whatever is needed. But no one really tells you what happens when giving becomes your identity. When being needed starts to feel like being valued. When you slowly disappear into the role you created. That's the part that matters here. Evelyn didn't just stop sending money. She realized something deeper. She realized that she had confused presence with purpose, that she had built a version of love that only worked as long as she kept showing up in the same way. And the moment she stopped, the reaction told her everything she needed to know. Not one call asking how she felt after the hospital. Not one message checking in on her health. Just pressure, urgency, financial concern. That's not a misunderstanding. That's clarity. And I think that's where this story becomes more than just another one of those revenge stories people listen to late at night. Because this wasn't about revenge. Not really. It looked like it from the outside. Calling a lawyer, cutting off access, setting up a trust. Those are the actions. But the real shift was internal. She stopped negotiating her own value. She stopped explaining herself to people who had already decided what role she played in their lives. And that's a hard thing to do, especially in family, because family is where we are taught to stay, to forgive, to adjust, to keep things together. Even when it costs us something. Sometimes, especially when it costs us something. But here's the truth, this story makes very clear. If someone only feels your absence when the benefit disappears, then they were never really connected to you in the first place. They were connected to what you provided. That's a hard sentence to hear, but it's an important one. And it doesn't mean those relationships are fake. It means they were built on the wrong foundation. So what do you do with that? That's the question people always ask. Do you cut them off completely? Do you confront them? Do you give them another chance? Evelyn didn't do any of those things in the way people expect. She didn't shut the door. She changed the terms. And that's a different kind of strength. Because it doesn't come from anger. It comes from understanding. She didn't say, "You're out of my life." She said, "This version of me is no longer available." That's a boundary. And boundaries are uncomfortable, especially if you've never had them before. People will push back. They'll question you. They'll tell you you've changed. And they're right. You have. That's the point. This story also says something important about timing. A lot of people wait too long. They wait until they're exhausted, until they're resentful, until they feel like they've been completely used up. Evelyn got close to that point, but she stopped just before it turned into bitterness. And that's why her ending feels different. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's calm. She's sitting on her porch, drinking tea, not waiting for the phone to ring. That's not a small thing. That's peace. And peace doesn't come from fixing everyone around you. It comes from deciding what you're willing to carry. So if you're watching this and something about it feels familiar, pay attention to that. Not in a dramatic way, in a practical one. Look at the patterns. Who calls you and why? When you stop giving, what changes? Do people still show up? Or do they disappear? Those answers matter more than anything someone says out loud. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about one family. It's about how easy it is to slide into a role you never meant to take on. And how hard it can be to step out of it. But it's possible. That's what this story shows. Not through speeches, not through confrontation, through quiet decisions that shift everything. And that's why stories like this real family drama, complicated family stories, the kind of situations people don't always admit out loud resonate the way they do. Because they're not extreme. They're familiar, they happen slowly. And when they finally become clear, they change you. So if you took something from this, if it made you think about your own situation, your own boundaries, your own patterns, that's where the value is. And if you want more stories like this, real grounded, sometimes uncomfortable but always honest, then make sure you subscribe. Because the best stories aren't just about what happened. They're about what you do once you finally understand it.